Before we get started, this is the first video I think that I've put out in actual 4K. I've rendered and uploaded in 4K before, but this is actually using a 4K camera. So let me know if I've put the camera settings right and it looks okay. On with the video! Well, hello, I'm Vince, also known as PleasantKenobi on the internet, and today we're going to watch Shardless Agent, Modern, and whether or not it's becoming Legacy. So they printed Shardless Agent into Modern through Modern Horizons, avoiding Standard. And Shardless Agent was once upon a time a big part of Legacy's metagame. The usual use of it would be to brainstorm ancestral visions at the top of your library, in your opponent's end step, untap, cast this, cascade into it, and draw 3 cards. It's build your own Mole Drifter, but you're trading flying for 1 more card. And that's a pretty good deal, really. Flying's for cowards anyway. Modern doesn't have brainstorm, and whilst it has the less efficient ways of getting the same synergy, for example, Jace the Mind Sculptor, people are still claiming that they often do that the printing of a long-time Legacy staple, in this case something that's fallen out of favour in Legacy, turns Modern into a Legacy-lite. And, well, this bugs me. If it's a joke, then fine. I can get behind unfunny jokes, that's like 90% of my content. But what we often see with memes and shit posting is that people who don't really have an opinion, or aren't involved in the topic, and probably don't care that much, they adopt the jokey sentiment in order to seem informed. I've seen this time and time again with some EDH-centric creators where they don't really give a shit about Modern or Legacy, but they want to be part of the discourse. So they'll tweet, or they'll mention in a video, something that they don't really understand or know about. And it's often uninformed at best, or at worst, a complete falsehood. And this isn't me gatekeeping. I know some fucker on Twitter is going to be like, but Vince, you're gatekeeping Commander creators. No, what I'm saying is, jokes can be fun, but sometimes they can lead to people having opinions and stuff that are complete fucking nonsense. And if there's one thing Magic players like, it's having an opinion. So let's have a talk. Is Modern becoming Legacy-lite? Like, for real, is that happening? Don't forget, channelfiber.com is the premier sponsor of this channel, so if you want to use CFB, the link in the description below, don't forget to use the code KENOBI at checkout. And of course, this video is brought to you by Ultra Pro as well, their wonderful Saturn deck boxes. And of course, the love of my patrons. Legacy is defined, or at least underpinned by a foundation of some core tenants, if you will. The first of these is a form of resource denial. Now, resource denial happens in all Magic, and I'll go into all of these categories in more detail, but I'm more talking about land and mana. More on that in a moment. Next up is fast mana, the idea of breaking the mana progression of land after turn to break Magic. The third of these tenants is powerful blue manipulation, card or deck manipulation, cantrips. And lastly, we have the tools that are often used to keep some of the broken shit that these other things create in check with free counter magic. Yeah, we'll talk about each of these in detail. When I say resource denial for the first one, a lot of cards that trade 1-for-1 in Legacy are also available in Modern. Thoughtseize, for example, is one of the most powerful cards ever printed and exists in both formats. The resource in particular that I'm describing is mana, or lands. Wasteland and Richard Port both exist in Legacy, but not Modern, and they define multiple archetypes that are often a part of the metagame at large. Delver uses Wasteland, I say often, Delver is always part of the metagame, normally one of the best decks in the format. Delver uses Wasteland to disrupt your opponent and win the tempo game while protecting a threat. Death and Taxes does similar, but with a more comprehensive package of disruption and playing shit creatures you have to protect. And Port shows up in disruptive creature decks and in the format Titan and Alumni lands. Personally, I would love to see Wasteland or Richard and Port show up in the format somewhere, at least one of the two. I think both would probably be a bit too good, but it seems like Wizards aren't keen to do that. I mean, Richard and Port has just showed up on this pirate that's not a pirate, the Richard and Pirate thing. I think this card's going to be dog shit, but it's clear that Wizards don't like fucking with lands. They feel that lands are sacred and should not be disrupted. Part of modern, or should I say contemporary design, is that it's a no-go to mess with people's lands, especially early in the game, and especially with your own lands. So in short, I doubt they will ever, through a contemporary design set, put Wasteland or Richard and Port into the format. Port is more likely, but either way, neither of them are landing. So we'll never have that disruptive element that multiple archetypal big metagame decks from Legacy use in Modern. Next we have the fast mana. Simian Spirit Guide and Mox Opal are all things that were banned in Modern in recent, I'll say living memory. Meanwhile, Legacy has entire archetypes defined and powered by things like Lion's Eye Diamond, a Lotus Petal, Dark Ritual, Chrome Mox, and the Spirit Guides. And we probably shouldn't forget the Soul Lands as well. This kind of mana helps to facilitate a lot of decks. You got your fast combo decks, like what Reanimator has become, what Charbelcher and the turn 1 combo decks, as they're called, are. Things like Spanish Inquisition and Oops All Spells. Then you got your slower combo decks that want to have a critical mass of cards and sometimes play a more controlling game. Things like Storm, very dependent upon fast mana. And then this fast mana also allows you to play strategies that are counter to the things I've just mentioned, like combos. So you have a fast mana starts that set up oppressive things like Wasteland Locks off of life from the Loam, or a turn 1 Chalice of the Void. Chalice is a really interesting one because in Legacy, a Chalice on 1 can be brutal. It can be game winning if they can't answer it in a couple of turns. Where in Modern, it existed for a while with Simian Spirit Guide, albeit less consistent, but it was kind of just shit and wasn't really worth skewing your deck to play with because you can't play 1-drops along your Chalice on 1 plan. Then we come to the efficient blue spells, the card manipulation, the deck manipulation that I mentioned, or cantrips. These spells are fundamental to Legacy. There's an argument that these plus Force of Will are warping, shall we say. We have a dominant representation of blue in Brainstorm, Ponder, and Preordain. Now, not every blue deck plays all 12, but most play 8. And if you're going into the combo side of things, you probably push towards 9, 10, 11, or 12 copies of these cantrips. These fuel everything, from combo to tempo to control. The former of these three has never been printed into Modern, so it's not banned, and was interestingly put into Historic recently, although the argument is that Brainstorm is turbo-powered by fetch lands, which just don't really exist in Historic. I know there's 1 or 2, don't be that person in the comment section. So without supercharging your Brainstorms, it's pretty much a reasonable Magic card in Historic, and not as good as it is in Legacy. The second two, Ponder and Preordain, have both been banned in Modern and were legal at one time or another. I was lucky enough to play, I think Preordain was legal alongside Treasure Cruise in the Delver deck. I say this, I should have looked this up before the video. But yeah, Preordain and Ponder were both legal at some point, and they no longer are. They've been banned for a reason, because they powered up decks like Storm and Twin to be too good at the time. It's hard to say that Modern is Legacy-lite when you have access to none of the cantrips. Even, is Accumulated Knowledge? It's not cantrip as such, it's more of a card advantage. Is that even put into Modern? Either way, your 12 cantrips that are used across combo, tempo, and control just don't exist. Well, one of them doesn't exist, and 2 of them are banned. And I'll talk more about ban list stuff in a moment for what we can understand what Wizards want out of Modern. And then lastly, we get onto the free spell package that are, go quite well with all these blue spells that can manipulate your deck and where you are. Daze and Force of Will are feel bad cards for your opponent, sometimes when they feel like you've always got it, but honestly, they're both very, very fair. Daze is a tempo hiccup for you if you're casting it for free, putting a land back into your hand, and sometimes that just feels awful for you when you're playing Daze, and Force of Will literally demands that you 2-for-1 yourself to stop a spell. It's not just free. Putting 2 cards into the bin to counter 1 spell from your opponent is a big downside. It is very reasonable when you're stopping a game-ending combo. It's better to be 2 cards down than be dead, but it's pretty terrible when you're, countering a 2-1 first striker for 2 and your opponent has a Wasteland up, which is also going to fuck you up. It just feels awful. I am very much in the camp that these spells are necessary for Legacy to survive in its current form. Without these cards, decks would become oppressive and too good and too strong, and turn 1 combo would probably be your default mode, because you just win your game 1s a lot, and there's not a lot people can do to stop you. I think in recent metagames, there's been arguments that they've been more oppressive, when Snowco was a big thing, but that's when they're combined with some of the modern design sensibility of blue cards like 3-mana Teferi, Oko, Uro, and that fucking land, what's it called? Mystic fucking Sanctuary. Modern has got some toys like this, thanks to Modern Horizons, Force of Negation and the new Blue Evoke creature, for example, but they function very, very differently. Negation actively incentivizes you to play creature threats instead of, planeswalkers or spells, something that in itself could define a format given time. Although I do not want to propagate the idea that creature combat doesn't exist in Legacy. It does. People who say it doesn't probably haven't played much Legacy. It's just a nonsense claim from people who want to act like they're informed when they're not. I guess what I'm trying to say with this video is that I fucking love Legacy, and for the most part, I fucking love Modern. And they're not the same thing. They've never really felt that similar, and they still don't, even with the addition of Shardless Agent or whatever card they put into Modern Horizons 2. That's not to say we won't see them print Legacy staples into a Modern Horizons set in the future. The great thing about Modern Horizons itself is that they can print powerful things past standard, and now relevantly I guess, past historics. Those things don't go into those sets, and they go into Modern Horizons. One of the arguments they made in the past for not being able to print powerful things that affect older formats, even though they've fucked older formats a lot with Power Crept standard design recently, but one of the arguments they've always made, alongside the argument for not allowing fetch lands into contemporary sets, is that it would damage standard. Now, they obviously care about standard. It is their money maker, their breadwinner with Arena. But yeah, they can now put those things into Horizon and bypass standard. And we've had, one Horizon set already. There's a second one. There will be a third. There will be a fourth. So maybe one day they'll put Ancient Tomb in. And they'll probably have to be banned because they'll make Eldrazi too good. And also there's the fact that the ban list itself kind of tells us a lot about what Wizards want to do. We know from current trends about their design philosophy. They don't want to print Mana Denial, right? They've even explicitly said that's not a thing they think is fun in Magic. But with the ban list as well, we can see when they ban Simian Spirit Guide, it's a good indication that they're not going to try and purposefully put fast mana into the format again. Some stuff will get printed that might be broken and need banning. I mean, there's plenty of mistakes, but they're pretty good at not making mistakes too. Weird statement, I know, but think about it. Every set that's busted, even Throne of Eldraine, which was redonkulous for the most part, there's what, 5 or 6 mistakes in there? And there's 230 cards that aren't mistakes? I don't know. What I'm getting at is that their ban list tells us a lot. And it tells us that actually the fundamentals that we see in Legacy aren't things they want to put into Modern. So it's unlikely that they will purposefully make Modern into Legacy-lite. And at the moment, I would argue they're not, based upon the things they put forward in this video. I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope this has been interesting, informative. I know some people are going to comment in the comment section below the other fundamental of Legacy that is too expensive. But look, I can't change the reserve list. I think the reserve list is fucking bollocks and it shouldn't exist, but I can't change it, so I'm not going to dwell on that in this video particularly. I do recommend that if you want to get into Legacy, try proxying some cards with your friends. Try getting your local stores to put on proxy events too. Legacy is very, very fun, and it fucks me off that it's so prohibitively expensive. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Do you think Shardless Agent is going to rock Modern to its very core? Do you think I'm talking complete shit? I'm sure some people will actually me in the comments, especially when I said that Ponder was legal at some point. Was Ponder banned when the format started? I just can't remember. It's been a long time. Let me know what you think of this video in the comment section below. Don't forget to smash that bell, like that button, and think of me when you next have a wank. Ta-ta for now.